Now it's time for another Pimpy's reaction video.
Yay!
I still get a kick out of that intro. What is going on out there, peeps? Alright, I had like a ton of you sending me links to this particular Truth A Thon video. And then there was a lot of questions asked regarding some of the things that were said on this particular Truth A Thon. So I had a chance to listen to a big part of it, and I get where there's a lot of questions and confusions. So I'm going to go ahead and make this video to try to straighten away some of the confusions. But yeah, there's some things on here that I agree with, a lot of things I don't agree with. Obviously, I'm not one of these people that go, hey, sit back, relax, eat popcorn, the clones are in charge. Because I still hear that today. It's just unfreaking believable that there are people out there who still believe that. But it'd be crazy for me to try to go down and respond to all of them at the same time. I mean, this particular video is 12 hours long. But people wanted me to go ahead and focus in on things that were said during Mark Z's appearance. And when it comes to Mark Z, and I don't have no issue with him. I've heard him a couple of times. The only thing that on his particular show, he should bring on this guy called Mike Contrell, who used to swear up and down that he had some magical codes that would just give money to the world and free the world, which is just bullshit. Because anybody with that kind of power, there would be no reason for you not to do it, although he's made 5 billion excuses why he hasn't done it. But he's not the only person to go out there and claim that they have the magical codes. I'm not even kidding you. You got Russell J. Full, who claims he's got them. Mark Christopher, who claims he's got them. There's a woman out there. She claims she's got these magical codes. There's no damn magical codes. Anybody holding magical codes and preventing the rest of the world from being free, what's that say about the individual other than just evil assholes? Okay? So there's no magical codes, you guys. But let's go ahead and get into this because there are some things I want to make sure that we get correct. Some things were said that were inaccurate because it's causing people to feel triggered, so to speak, when it comes to what is left before we can see an increase in Iraqi dinar. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy Silver. Yes, it has changed. PIMPY-SILVER. So if you're watching this video and it's an older video, make sure you check on current videos because the code is going to be changing from time to time from now on. Also, I can be found on other platforms. Everybody knows I have my own website, Pimpy's News Network. Over here, I post videos that I can't get away with over on YouTube. Also, I have a group on Facebook called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. Come on over here and join us. It's free to do so. You can also come follow me on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, and Odyssey. The links for all these platforms will be down below in the description. So for whatever reason, if I get removed off of one platform, you could find me on the others. Oh, I love this picture right here, man. But this is the state that we are in as a nation. You got to love it when man's best friend knows that something's going on and things are so bad that even the dog is joining in on our prayers. But I do love this picture. That's the great thing about dogs and why it is that I love dogs so much. Cute picture, man. Absolutely love it. All right, so there was this Truth A Thon, I guess is the best way to put it. There were several guests that came on and just said their piece and what they believe about what's going on around the world. And I think one person said it best in there, that people got to understand that this is their truth. It's what they believe. So just keep that in mind, because not everybody's going to agree with it. There's things, like I said, that I don't agree with. But again, that's their truth. So we're just going to pick up where Mark Z comes on, because this gentleman here on the right is having a chat with Mark Z, and a big portion of it has to do with what's going on with the Iraqi dinar. And I want to make sure that we get some of these things straightened out, all right? Because a lot of you had questions about it. So let's get into this, and then we'll kind of chime in from time to time.
I'm fantastic, Lewis. Hopefully you are as well. I'd love to take the opportunity now while you've got me on to use some of that time to give kudos to your team and acknowledge them. They've just been so huge. The events I got to go to during the first Truth Tour were, it was absolutely amazing. And then just that eclectic mix of speakers was, to me, just shows how deep this movement, this desire to know the truth, find the truth is. And your team was amazing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, it is nice to see so many people out there trying to dig into the truth and bring it to the people, because you can't trust our mainstream media. You got to understand that all print and network news is owned by 6 companies, which means they control the narrative of what we learn and don't learn. And now we're finding out through Twittergate that the social media is trying to control what it is that we're allowed to talk about and what we're not allowed to talk about. So that truth is coming out, which is very important. People should be really pissed off. These people are circumventing our constitutional rights to freedom of speech, and that's not what you want. So there are individuals out there who are legit, who are trying to bring you the truth, and then you got people out there who are riding on the coattails of this and pumping BS at people, so just be careful.
Then I want to know more about the future dates so I can come attend.
Yep, we'll talk to you offline about there. That would be fantastic. I really enjoyed you the first time. We had a short but spirited conversation. I appreciate everything you do, and so we're just going to hand the ball over to you right now. And for you that are asking, guys, I'm playing with my backgrounds today. I actually made this one, didn't find it because I'm snorkeling right now.
In the hot tub.
Yes, that's the I will have. In fact, I'm looking up hot water fish so I can snorkel in the hot tub with coral and certain fish. So I'm working it out. Mark Z, take it away, brother.
All right. One, thank you for the opportunity to join you guys today. I have such great respect and just tickled with what you guys are doing. I just want to touch, and of course, listening to Michael made me feel a little better because I've had my own doubts like we all do with the ups and downs. We're winning battles, we're losing battles. Lewis, you summed it up really well. We're starting to see more and more victories. Of course, the Twitter one, the Brunson case, and so many things like that. And we're winning. We've got to remind ourselves it is a slow, nasty grind, but we are winning.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There are days when I wake up and I'm feeling like, man, this is a waste of time. You're over here busting your ass trying to just deliver the truth to people. Fight this war between good and evil. This isn't about Democrats. It's not about Republicans, left nor right. Even though, unfortunately, you have to use these labels from time to time in order for people to get things in perspective. It's, again, more about good versus evil. When you're going through the news, and I try to avoid the mainstream media as much as possible, but you do need to combat that very apparatus that the bad people, in my opinion, are using to get into the minds of the citizens and control the masses. So you do got to pay attention to the news, and then you got to come out and speak against it when it's wrong. And that is a constant battle, considering they will label us as conspiracy people, try to discredit us in any way, shape, or form, just like they're trying to do right now with Twitter. They're trying like how to bash and discredit Elon Musk because he's exposing the truth that they didn't want the people to know, and that they are truly censoring people and silencing them.
One case at a time. We might lose a couple, then we win a few. We just have to keep the faith because the end game is love wins, and we can't stop. You don't get to sit this one out. It's a choice. You're either for good or you're for evil.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No sidelines left for anybody. And like Michael talked about the digital warriors, they have accomplished so much.
Yeah, I do absolutely agree with Mark on this one. There's no sitting on the sidelines for this one. Not at all. You got to take a side and fight. I've mentioned this in so many videos where people are like, yeah, God's in control, so we're just sitting back. No. It don't work that way. It speaks a lot about it in Scripture, that you just don't sit back and say, hey, God, help me, then don't do anything. God's only going to help those individuals who get up and fight for themselves as well. God is there, but God isn't going to just do all the work for you. You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to be involved. So I agree with this 100%.
Just sitting from home, from in front of their computers, their emails, the sharing it with friends when they go to the barber shop, the sharing when you go and run into an old neighbor at the grocery store. Over 60% of Americans don't believe the last election, 2020 was legitimate. Even fewer than that believe 2022 midterms were. People are questioning it. You're seeing militaries all over the world starting to step in.
Ooh, yeah. You have no clue. A lot of people aren't aware. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 17 countries that have uprisings right now against the government. They're pissed off about the election results. They don't believe them. They don't trust them. So here in the United States is not the only country having issues. You can see here in Peru, this is from December 9th, Peru ousted president put on provisional detention. So Peru's former president, Pedro Castillo, was placed on provisional detention on Thursday, a day after he was ousted by lawmakers and arrested, accused of attempting a coup. So what's happening, there's a lot of elections where these people who are supported by the World Economic Forum are somehow winning elections when they're not popular at all. These candidates we know are supported by the World Economic Forums. They're part of this great reset, and more people are learning who the bad people are and who the good people are. And so you're starting to see people rise up. They don't like the results of these elections. And the funny thing is, a lot of the voting machines being used are the Dominion ones. Not all of them, but these countries, they have that. Like in Brazil, they complained. So Peru, they have an issue going on. Nigeria is another one. Look at this. Kazakhstan says foiled coup attempt ahead of early vote. So over in Kazakhstan, right before election, you got people pointing fingers at each other about who is and who's not, accusing the other of rigging an election. But it is left versus right. So you can see here, it says Kazakhstan said Thursday it had prevented a coup attempt by supporters of exiled opposition figure as it arrested 7 people ahead of the presidential election. On Sunday, Kazakhstan will hold a snap presidential vote expected to cement the incumbent leader's grip on power. Months after deadly unrest shook the Central Asia country that left more than 230 people dead. So the National Security Committee said a group of 7 people planned organized riots and a coup and proclaim a provisional government, adding that the suspects share the views of exiled opponent. So these people had weapons and walkie-talkies and they were ready. This is why you see the Democrats fight so hard against their Second Amendment. They know armed citizens definitely put up resistance against a government of tyranny, which is exactly what they're trying to install. You can see this article right here. It says coups are making a comeback. There are several countries in which there are attempted coups, coups that were successful, and coups that are being planned, the whole 9 yards. Myanmar, the military literally overthrew their government when rumors that the leader, she at the time, had met several times with George Soros and George Soros' son. Now, they didn't like George Soros. Not at all. So when they overthrew the government, they found all kinds of communications of George Soros giving that particular leader orders on what to do to help push that country towards the World Economic Forum's New World Order. And so the military is like, now we're not having it. And now you have George Soros using cryptocurrencies to help fund what he called a democracy uprising. But that's what they do. They take words like democracy and they think, and this way they're convincing the people that they're doing something good when they're not. They're actually attempting to push us all towards the New World Order. Coups in Africa, there's a ton of them. Burkina Faso, Sudan, Guinea, Chad, Mali. Canadian police lay charges in alleged Haiti coup plot. Sri Lanka people overthrew their government and they laid out demands that I absolutely supported. I've done videos about their demands. Said they want 100% debt forgiveness of all debt that is owed to the IMF and World Bank. And they don't want any people from the World Economic Forum in charge of the government. So they're looking for total debt jubilee. And that is their demands after the government had told their farmers, like we're seeing around the world, their farmlands are being taken over in order for new housing for refugees. They're being told that the fertilizer that they use is no good and that it's hurting the climate and that they have huge carbon footprints. It's the same crap they're saying everywhere, okay? Except for these people didn't put up with it. They actually overthrew their government. So kudos to Sri Lanka. As I stated, in Myanmar, the military overthrew their government because of the president at the time, her relationship with Soros. Germany arrested 25 accused of plotting a coup. This is in Germany, okay? Angela Merkel is a graduate of the World Economic Forum's Young Globalist Leaders. So she is part of that New World Order movement. 25 people have been arrested and raged across Germany on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government. The group of far-right and ex-military figures, this is why right now you see the Democrats treat our military so bad and our veterans. They treat them like crap because they know they're the group of people that if enough people rose up to stop their tyranny, that the military had the ability to train civilians out there in how to fight. And they don't like that. So like everywhere else around the world, you have the left versus right. And the people on the right are tired of a corrupt government. You come down here, though, you got to love this. Other suspects came from the QAnon movement, who believe the country is in the hands of a mythical deep state involving secret powers pulling the political strings. So it's one thing if you have a handful of people somewhere that believe that. It's another when people around the world have the same thoughts. So it isn't just here in the United States where the so-called 17-letter movement is a threat to these people. They're not just exposing the corruption and the BS here in the United States. It's being done around the world. But this one here comes from December 31st. For those of you out there who know that story about a group of military people, retired people, approached Trump to run for presidency. And how does the story go? If he didn't, they were going to run a coup in order to oust this evil government that's there. Well, how close was that to being realistic? Take a look here. Retired general warns the U.S. military could back a coup after the 2024 election. This is a retired general telling you this. It says, as the anniversary of the peaceful protest at the U.S. Capitol approaches, 3 retired U.S. generals have warned that another peaceful protest could occur after the 2024 presidential election and that the military could support it. Oh, are we at that point? Look, our military leaders are super weak right now. And that scruffy old man that wants to know about why anger, our military leaders are weak. That's not what we want in our military. If you have not seen the documentary Died Suddenly, I highly recommend you go see it. I will leave the link down below for you guys to go see it. But you can understand this. If you watch that video, then you understand the condition that our military is in, and it's very scary. So yeah, around the world, there's a fight going on. It is left versus right. There's no doubt about it. Or I should say, it is good versus evil.
It's a truly unique time in world history, and we have a front row seat.
Sorry, I had myself muted. We do, Mark. So in your specialty that I know you talk about a lot with say future financing and so on and so forth, what do you see on the horizon right there? Because I know that's a mixed bag of tricks. I was studying dinar as 17 years ago, actually. No, I didn't just make up the 17 number. It was.
So for those of you who are new to investing into the Iraqi dinar, this is how long people have been investing in it. This is why you got a lot of people who are sour on the investment, because they've been into it for so long and they've been lied to by so many groups of people. And that's why when I see this kind of thing that's going on and I see something that is not accurate, I will say something about it. And I do speak out against those people blowing hopium up your butts. I don't want that to happen. So 17 years, he was looking into it. So this tells you how long this has been going on.
It was actually 17 years ago. And that, talk about a roller coaster, just that alone. So what do you see happening in the forefront, in the background? I know some people consider it hopium, but you're more pragmatic in your approach. So I'd like to know what you're looking at right now.
I'm trying to pay attention to those fundamentals, and the fundamentals have been broken. You know it. I mean, everybody here, everybody in the known world can feel it, that debt-based fractional fiat system. Something isn't right. There's nothing backing it. Same thing that makes them question a lot of the cryptos out there. You know, what's the value? What's backing it? And it really is important, and we're watching that. And we're watching the sanctions against Russia are now like speeding up this reset to a commodity-backed system. And for me, I follow the currencies that have a lot of commodities in their country, because when we do reset, and guys, this has happened in the past. This has happened. Humanity does this over and over. It's a wash, rinse, repeat, where they figure out and governments get feel comfortable and get control, and they start back in Rome clipping coins. Then of course, coins aren't really functional. You got to go deliver them. Let's start using pieces of paper that represent them. Then it becomes just paper. They realize people are accepting the paper. They don't even need the gold to back it. And we keep doing this over and over. As Voltaire said, fiat always returns to its intrinsic value of zero.
Which is the true. But the funny thing is, I want to make sure you understand this. The people determine what is and what is not an acceptable currency. You might not have heard about this, but tulips at one time were more valuable than a house. I'm not even kidding. It's called tulip mania. You can look this up. It's about the Dutch tulip bulb market bubble. I'm not even kidding you. It said the Dutch tulip bulb market bubble was one of the most famous asset bubbles and crashes of all times. At the height of the bubble, tulips sold for approximately 10,000 guilders, equal to the value of a mansion on the Amsterdam Grand Canal. How did this happen? Somewhere along the lines, the people were convinced that they had to have tulips, and it caused a huge demand for them, and the values shot up to have them. So this could not have been done unless the people themselves, for some reason, accepted that the tulips were that valuable. So that goes the same with anything. And that's why when we're dealing with fiat currencies, and yes, their intrinsic value is always zero because there's nothing to support them except for the promise and good word of your faithful government. I don't want anything from my government because they're corrupt. But at one time, people thought the tulip bulbs were extremely valuable.
So I just follow the mechanics of this thing. People want something they can taste, touch, or eat. They want to know it's real and something real is backing it other than just words.
Right. And then, so it's interesting you talked about commodities, because if my research is solid, generally they can help value a currency based on something tangible. That would be oil in the ground, gold, silver, so on and so forth. That's generally how they should actually, especially if we're on the gold standard.
You're talking about an asset-backed currency. That would give your currency value because you do have something of value supporting your currency. Back in the olden day, we used the gold standard. That means our money was backed by gold. So you remember you had gold certificate dollar bills, you had silver certificate dollar bills, which meant at any time people can go into the bank and exchange a bank note for actual physical gold and silver. In 1971 or 73, one of them, Nixon took us off 100% off the gold standard. And then that's when all hell broke loose with these fiat currencies. When you're on the gold standard, the government is restricted about how much money they can spend. On a fiat dollar, they're not restricted. As you can see, we now owe trillions of dollars because of it.
That's how they value the so-called paper money, is based on that, because they need a backing of some sort, or it is just, like you say, a fiat. It's almost like a shell. It's not real. Would you agree with that?
Raisha, if you do some deep dive in history, the longest running currency in the world literally was a shell.
Interesting.
Way back into antiquity, so I thought it was funny, but it's kind of like the Holland bulb crisis. They backed their money with flower bulbs, which was great until nobody wanted it. I can't imagine a world in which nobody wants rare earth minerals, nobody wants gold. Mm-hmm. Technology is adding so many of those things to the commodity basket that have great weight. It's I tell you, it's an interesting time.
It is. So, let's talk about real quick the Iraqi dinar and the RV, because these are key words that we hear all the time. I think it's named IQD, but when I was researching this back in the day, obviously we've seen. It seems like every holiday that we hear, oh, there's going to be an RV. You know what I mean? It's the same game.
It'll be gold Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
That's because the Iraqi budget runs runs from January 1st through December 31st. It's the calendar year. It used to be sometime around the end of March, April. It used to be that calendar, but it changed. So that's why right around Christmas time, the new budget comes out, and everybody swears up and down that the new budget's gonna have the new exchange rate. Yay! That never happens.
So it's a game that's played all and over, and a lot of the pumpers do that to sell it, and it's sad because we have people out there that literally just want to know the truth, right? So I found markers in the past, and for example, before an RV could even happen, they would have to go through Chapter 7, which is a little bit different through the International Monetary Fund than it is a Chapter 7, for, say, you and I. They had to go through that. Then,
no, Chapter 7 for you and I is bankruptcy. They didn't have to go through bankruptcy. And it wasn't with the IMF, and it wasn't with the World Bank. That's not what it was. The United Nations had them on Chapter 7 restriction. And as a matter of fact, I think it was in last June, the United Nations voted and released them 100%. They had already been released, but the final portion of it was over with. Saudi Arabia had been paid in full by Iraq, and so they were removed out of United Nations Security Council's Chapter 7. Not the same as bankruptcy, not the same as you and I. So it's different altogether. The markers that he talks about, I remember when he used to speak on Brando's channel, I found a whole list, like a checkoff list, and I didn't ever hear anybody else talk about it. There was this whole to-do list by Iraq that they had to go through before they could even be back on the international scene and had their currency once again recognized. So it's interesting that he's talking about these markers because I don't remember anybody ever talking about them prior to that. I'm not saying I'm the one that found them, but I'm just saying with all the videos that I had watched going back years, nobody ever spoke about them until I brought forth the list on Brando's show.
They had to go through the reporting. Then they had to establish a proper government. It had to be in place for enough time. Then they had to go through budgets that had to be approved. And they had to be approved on time, not always backdated like their budgets were approved. On and on and on. There's markers that these things have to happen. It's not a snap of a finger. And then what I found is, to me, the most important marker, and this is just my opinion, I just want to know, is there's something called the hydrocarbon law, the HCL. And what that in Iraq, for people that don't know, is the Kurds pretty much saved our ass in the Iraqi war because that's part of a certain percentage of the Iraqi fighting force that were taken out, and they were the best fighters out there. They're like mountaineers, and they understood how to do it. There was an agreement that was made that if they would share resources based on the oil that they had coming off of their lands, a percentage, and they had to sign a hydrocarbon law, which was pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. In my opinion, the HCL would have to be signed before there will even be a revalue, because that will directly reflect that. The good news, if I'm right, I've seen in the last couple of months there's been some movement on that. Can you speak to that at all?
That was actually this week, the HCL 140. It was agreed upon just this week. And then they turned around today and finished seating two more factions into the cabinet. It's ready. The IMF has told us it's ready. The UN has told us it's ready. The World Bank's told us it's ready. It's now up to the Central Bank of Iraq, which, of course, is waiting to make certain that government is cohesive and sat.
Well, then, is it ready? No. In 2007, Iraq's hydrocarbon law draft suitable for Kurdistan region. It had nothing to do with, they helped us in the war. That's not what happened. They've been fighting over this territory since like 1920. Over there in Kurdistan, they have their own oil coming out of the ground. When, of course, Saddam Hussein was in power, he made it his oil. So when they ousted Saddam Hussein, there was a fight over who the oil actually belonged to. And the Kurdistan people rightfully said, hey, it belongs to us. So there's back and forth between Erbil and what was going on in Baghdad over who had the right to the oil. It was on the land of Kurdistan. And so they started taking oils and going into contracts with people. They started selling their oil. They started building up a surplus. And then we all know what happened. In 2022, the Supreme Court of Iraq struck the deal down, said it was not constitutional. And then they ordered Kurdistan to turn over all the oil that they were holding, all the contracts that they were signed into, and the money pertaining to the oil that they sold. Of course, they still have not done that yet. They're still negotiating. And I was stating that when Soudani got in office, Kurdistan can make it hell for them and still drag this issue with forming a government on. And that the only way they would agree is if before they agree to vote in confidence, the prime minister and their cabinets, that they would have to have an agreement put into place that the oil would remain in Kurdistan's hands and what it is. That's what they're talking about. So there was a verbal agreement, but there's nothing been signed as of yet. Oil belonged to Kurdistan. It is on their land. They made it part of their constitution that Kurdistan was to have the oil, and they were supposed to get a huge part of the budget, but they were not getting the money from the budget, and especially with Maliki's people in there. When we seen Al-Qadimi in charge, he was sending them money. He had honored the Constitution, and then all of a sudden the Supreme Court said, don't do that. It's unconstitutional. So we're almost back to square one again. Now you can see right here, this is from 11/11/2022. It said calls for drafting a joint oil and gas law between Erbil and Baghdad have resurfaced since the formation of the new Iraqi government under Prime Minister Soudani, after ruling from the Iraq's top court in February deeming the Kurdistan regional oil and gas law unconstitutional, escalated tensions between the KRG and the federal government. So there is no agreement. The fruits of an agreement are there. Here's where the holdup is. The Kurdistan was producing X amount of barrels of oil as requested from Baghdad, and then they would get percentage of the budget. But anything above that required amount belonged to Kurdistan. They started finding new oil reserves in the ground. And Kurdistan said, no, in the Constitution, it only said we had to give you a portion of what oil fields existed. All new fields, 100% belong to us. And that's where the tension started to happen. And the Supreme Court said, no, as a matter of fact, now all oil, new and old, belong to Baghdad, not Kurdistan. So that's where we are. There has been no agreement, not yet. No, the hydrocarbon law has not been signed yet.
So for me, Annie, it's exciting because now there aren't any more excuses. The world is pushing them to revalue. The people are pushing them to revalue. Soudani is talking about it openly on the streets and in the press that they are going to revalue and that they are going to restore its value as one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable currency in the world.
No. No, Soudani is not talking about it in the streets. When he was running for office, he had promised that they would change the exchange rate. But once he got into office, what did he say? The government has no say-so. That he trusts the governor of the Iraq central bank to do it, and he's not going to pressure them. So he's already said, Soudani's already said several times, that's not up to the government. It is up to the governor of the Central Bank of Iraq. So no, Soudani is not out there talking about changing the rate. What you have is a bunch of speculators and members within the government, parliament, spreading these rumors that the exchange rate is going to change when the Central Bank of Iraq has already told people they weren't going to change it for 5 years. When they asked Soudani about it, he said, hey, they're the ones that make the choice. I have no say-so in it. So he was even agreeing with the Central Bank of Iraq. They would not change the rate for 5 years. I think we're somewhere like 2 or 2.5 years into that 5 years. And look, they said this before. Back in 2014, they said they would not change the rate for 5 years. And when we got to 2019, everybody was celebrating. Everybody was excited. They're waiting for the change. And obviously nothing. So no, there's no hydrocarbon law that's been signed. No, the international community is not pressuring. There's no way in how the international community is pressuring for Iraq to change their currency value. And the reason for that is the globalists love a devalued currency because that allows them to bring in companies and have labor work done on their products dirt cheap. A devalued currency is what they look for. As a matter of fact, it was the IMF and World Bank that said to keep the rate the way it was. And this is where Dr. Shabibi came in, and he was pissed. He didn't want to get into the Paris Accord. He said there are monetary policies and procedures that they want us to follow, do a great job of keeping the inflation in control. But it was terrible because it added no value to the exchange rate of the currency. And therefore, he didn't want to sign it. But he was talked into signing it. And then the rest is history. That is why we are where we are. So no, the whole world can jump up and down and say everything they want. But no countries are going to force or demand another country to change their exchange rate. They don't have a say-so. Just like Iraq doesn't have a say-so in anybody else changing their currency.
It's exciting from that front for all of these years where we've kind of seen it floundering, maybe, and we think they're getting it together, and then boom, they fall flat on their face. Mm-hmm. They actually have it together now. They've been cleaning up the corruption.
And they said already that when they do change the exchange rate, if they do, they're only going to restore the old rate, not the $3.22 rate, you guys. Come on now. The one they had prior to this rate, which is 1,190 dinars for every $1. Right now, they have 1,450 dinars for every dollar. It's about a 20% increase.
Corruption. They've been using their foreign currency options in reverse. So they are selling U.S. dollars, selling other currencies, and taking in IQD so that they can destroy it and reduce the amount in circulation.
No. They're not using the currency auction in reverse. So what happens in the currency auction? We know that Iraq gets paid in U.S. dollars. That's how they get paid for their oil. They call them greenbacks, if you want to call them that. So when they get paid in U.S. dollars, then the currency goes to auction, and they sell the U.S. dollars in auctions. This isn't a reverse. They've been doing that the entire time. And so then this allows them to build up their foreign asset reserves, which is different currencies from different countries. And this helps you protect the value of your currency. So if one country starts to gain strength against your currency, then you flood the market with their currency, devaluing it. That's why it's important for Iraq to have a large amount of foreign currency assets. Just like they've been buying tons of gold. That all backs the strength of their currency. So they're not doing auctions in reverse. A few years ago, we know that Iraq was using like $1 to $1.5 billion of oil sales per month to purchase Iraqi dinars off the open market. Now, we heard about that a long time ago. So there's no way to actually know how much currency is out there in circulation. We only hear about the amount that was made, but do we actually know how much is in circulation? No, there's no way to know that. We know that ISIS came in and stole a bunch of it, and it was found. We know recently the so-called theft of the century happened. So there's no doubt what's going to happen is they're going to have to redenominate the money because they don't know where the money is. And that's what I'm waiting for to happen. But no, they're not doing the auctions in reverse.
It's exciting right now where we're at as opposed to any time in the past. People are like, hey, what's different this year, this Christmas that might be golden as opposed to the last one, 10 years ago, 17 years ago for you. What's different? And that you just pointed it out. They've made all of those. They've completed their bankruptcy requirements. They have made whole all of the other parties. They made Kuwait whole. They've made Saudi Arabia. They've settled all of their accounts that they needed to do to come out of that.
So it's interesting you'd say that. I didn't know that they've signed the HCL, so that is extremely exciting because that's been the main marker that I've been waiting for a long time. Now, just so people are clear, when Mark says the central bank has to be formed and perfectly running in Iraq, it's not the Rothschild central bank that you will know of, just so you know. So they still call it the central bank, but it's a whole different animal, and they've been battling that since I think almost 20 years. Shabibi, if I remember.
So when I hear these people say, oh man, my research, I've done research for years. And then they come out and make comments like this. So he's claiming that the Rothschilds do not own the Central Bank of Iraq. That's wrong. They do own the Central Bank of Iraq. As a matter of fact, you're going to be hard-pressed to find any countries without a Rothschild bank. The complete list of Rothschild-owned banks, this is as of October 2020. It's in alphabetical order. Iraq, Central Bank of Iraq is owned by the Rothschilds. So that statement is inaccurate. So it's easier to look up which countries don't have a Rothschild bank versus ones that do. You can see right here the countries that have no central banks. That is the small list of them right there. Countries should boot them out, just like Russia did. Russia should be on this list now because we know what Putin said. And that is the best gift he can give future generations is to boot out the Rothschild bank. So no, Iraq still is a Rothschild bank.
Way back in the day.
I tell you, I still love watching the old Shabibi videos. Of course, he passed away, 2 years ago, I think it was, in London. Just what a tremendous intellect and so knowledgeable on economics. The Arab world, I mean, the whole world period is going to miss his mind, or does. But it's his plan, and they have executed it surprisingly well.
Yep. Beautiful. So what else is going on with you, Mark?
Just a normal thing, trying to truth and red pill as many people as I can. I've really tried to go back to fundamentals so that it gives them something that they can really feel, see, bite their teeth into, and show them in even mainstream media that they're winning. You comb through
fundamentals. Me, I was labeled the boogeyman. Everybody thought, oh, Pimpy don't know what he's talking about. I was like, what do you mean I don't know what I'm talking about? I'm the one that decided to try to educate those listening to my videos. Instead of running around talking about, we're going to get that 322 rate. Or what was the other stories that I heard? Due to adjusted inflation, now the Iraqi dinar is going to be worth $7 for every one Iraqi dinar. Or $13, which was just a lie, man. It's a lie. Is the Iraqi dinar a real investment? Yes. Are they going to change the rate overnight? Anything is possible, but highly unlikely. There are too many factors right now keeping that from happening. But I do think they are going to go up in increments, small increments. The first one is to bring us back to the old rate. And I'm not talking about the $3.22 for every one Iraqi dinar. I'm talking about the 1,190 dinars for every $1. So I wanted to come through and just once again point out the information that was incorrect, because it's important that people stay grounded and are knowledgeable about what's going on when it comes to Iraqi dinar. Anyways, that's it for now. Let me know what you think. I look forward to your comments, and I will catch you later. I'm out.